I heard the fork hit the plate before Jenna said it. That smug little line she'd been saving like a ribbon she could tie across my throat. You'll never own property. The room went quiet the way an audience hushes before a joke lands. Dad smiled like he'd just won a point. Mom's jaw set, waiting for the embarrassment to bloom on my face. I breathed out slow, set my fork down and said, "You're probably right." That was the voice example I keep in my head whenever I tell this story. One line that opens everything. I heard the fork hit the plate before Jenna said it. They relaxed. They thought the moment was over. But something colder settled behind my ribs. That night, I made one phone call before anyone in my house woke up. That call rewrote what they all thought they knew about me. Growing up in suburban Ohio, my family measured people by the size of their houses and the loudness of their renovations. Dinner conversation was a construction update. New backsplash, roof replaced, who was refinancing. Jenna was the shining daughter. Confident, vocal, flawless on paper. I, Eliza, learned early to take up as little space as possible at that table. They called me the renter. They meant it like an insult, like a diagnosis. But they didn't know what I did for a living. They didn't know I ran a small portfolio quietly, like a gardener trimming in the dark. Tenant screening at midnight, contracts over coffee, hard conversations with contractors, spreadsheets that looked like tiny lifelines. I didn't correct them. Why would I? Their applause was for the loudest person in the room, and I had no interest in performing. That night, Jenna's line tasted like a judge's gavel. But instead of breaking, something in me went calm and precise. I had already been building. I had been patient. I had been buying to the rhythm of my own breath. And that morning, with the light coming across my tiny kitchen, I decided patience had a limit. I made a call. It sounded small. It wasn't. 2 winters earlier, Jenna called me with a voice I'd never heard from her. Thin, panicked. She'd lost her job. The mortgage was due. "Don't tell Mom and Dad," she said. "Please." She asked me to cover a month. I agreed. 1 month became 3, 3 became 6. She found work eventually, but not the salary she'd grown used to. The house needed upgrades. Pride is expensive. Bath fixtures, new hardwood, a backsplash that catches the light just so. All the little shows of success that keep a family's trophy polished. Jenna didn't tell anyone she was struggling. She never wanted the pedestal to wobble. So she kept pretending and I kept paying. I didn't do it because she blackmailed me emotionally. I did it because she was my sister. Because when she said, "Please," I heard the small child under the armor. Because in the dark nights when she called, I remembered the 2 of us sharing a bedroom, trading secrets under blankets. But I also kept building my own life in the margins. I bought smart, not flashy. A duplex near the river, a triplex downtown, some single-family homes in decent neighborhoods. 15 properties, stable, professionally run. Quietly, I learned the rules of wealth the hard way, by staying steady. She kept spending. I kept paying. And no one knew. Until dinner. That family dinner was supposed to be ordinary. Mom made lasagna. Dad told the story about a colleague's retirement. Jenna walked in with a new confidence, like she owned the room. Midway through she leaned back, smiled and dropped it. "You'll never own property." Dad nodded. Mom laughed a little. The crowd watched for my shame. I didn't give it to them. I said, "You're probably right." But I tasted the word equity in Jenna's next text at dawn. A photo of her new kitchen, the gleam of the backsplash, the caption, "Thinking about upgrading the master bathroom next. Might as well keep building equity." Equity. The same word that had kept me awake for years while I scraped together another down payment. I'd been paying $3,000 a month into her mortgage, into her equity. 2 years of transfers. 2 years of silence. The next morning, as cold light fell across my apartment floor, I opened my laptop and looked at my own numbers. 15 properties. Occupancy solid. Cash flow steady. I breathed a truth out loud. I had been hiding my power while she performed it. I made a decision. It was small in action, seismic in effect. I called Janet, the accountant who'd helped me set up auto payments when Jenna first asked for help. Her voice was warm on the second ring. "Morning, Eliza," I said. "Stop accepting Jenna's mortgage payment. Effective next month." She hesitated. "You sure?" "I'm sure," I told her. The anchor dropped. For 2 years, I'd been the safety net. For 2 years, I'd been a secret lender. That morning, I decided I wouldn't be that anymore. I hung up and felt the world rearrange in a single clean way. This is the second voice example, the turning point where I stop pleading and take action. I'm done keeping you afloat while you pretend you're standing on your own. It was not dramatic. There was no throwdown, no hissed ultimatum at a dinner table. The action was a quiet administrative cutoff, a tiny lawful thing. Stop the payment, cancel the autopay. But small administrative moves are what hold up big lives. That one phone call started the chain reaction. Jenna didn't notice at first. She liked life to feel seamless. On the third day, noon on a Tuesday, her name lit my phone. "Eliza," she said, voice thin. "My mortgage payment didn't go through. Did your bank glitch?" I let a beat stretch. "No," I said. "It's not coming." There was a small, strangled sound. "You can't do this." "I can," I said. "And I will." Anger. Blame. She tried every familiar tactic. Promises, plans, pleas for patience. I'd heard them before. I'd accepted them before. Not this time. This time I was steady, precise. Not cruel. Not generous. Fair. I wanted her to face the math of her life. She called a family meeting that night. The living room felt smaller than usual, like everyone had drawn in their edges to watch. Jenna at the center, mascara streaked, breath sharp. Mom's hands trembled. Dad looked like he wanted to be somewhere else. Jenna told them, not all at once, but in that brittle, clumsy way of confession, about losing her job, about how hard she'd tried. Then she said the words that would tilt everything. "Eliza's been helping me." They turned to look at me. Nobody expected the person they thought was a renter to slide a folder across the coffee table. I had prepared that folder with Janet. Income statements, property lists, bank summaries, the kind of plain numbers that are louder than any accusation. Dad picked it up with curiosity that turned to something like disbelief. 15 properties, he read, like the words might rearrange into a joke. Market value about $2.8 million. Mom leaned in, eyes wide. The room needed oxygen. Jenna tried to speak. Her voice was thin. "You never said anything," Mom whispered. I answered honestly. I didn't need applause. I didn't want to perform. I needed boundaries. This is the private humiliation scene, the voice example that still stings when I replay it in my head. I watched the room wait for a crack on my face that never came. An expectation that I would shrink, but I didn't. People expected me to be small and meek. I refused them that satisfaction. The revelation changed the angle of the light in the room. Dad, who had nodded when Jenna called me a renter. He looked smaller, unmoored. He hadn't thought to ask. He hadn't seen the quiet life that had been building behind the scenes. There is a slow cruelty in not being asked to show what you are capable of. There is a deeper cruelty in believing you already know someone. The folder made that cruelty visible. Jenna's pleas sounded like a worn record. Promotions pending, renovations increasing value. I'll pay you back. I had been the person who accepted those promises for 2 years. But watching her stand and pleading, watching my family shuffle between shock and anger, I realized the real debt wasn't the money. The debt was the lie we'd all been living. Jenna's life had been staged, and by keeping it, I had been complicit. I had to break that stage. So I set a deadline. 30 days. You have 30 days, I told her. Sell, refinance, downsize. Figure it out. She fell apart in a way that was honest and raw, not performative. I helped her move out, not with checks, but with boxes and muscle, the kind of help you give when you want someone to stand on their own. The family had to sit with the shame of their assumptions. Dad apologized, stumbling over the words. Mom cried, asking why I'd hidden my success. Because I didn't want a seat at your competition table, I said. I wanted my life to be mine. The truth had a cleansing effect. It didn't humiliate for humiliation's sake. It reset borders. It made our relationships possible again. Not perfect, but real. People like stories where revenge involves fireworks, sabotage, or dramatic public unmaskings. This wasn't that. My plan was simple and ethical. Stop enabling, force ownership of truth, and continue building my life without apology. I had spent years learning the rules of real estate and money. I loved the work of it, negotiating rents, handling repairs, checking leases at odd hours. I'd chosen stewardship over spectacle. So the revenge was mainly in choosing myself. I stopped giving Jenna a financial safety net she didn't earn. I stopped letting the family's assumptions define the terms of my own life. In the 30 days, Jenna tried everything. She house-hunted for ways to restructure her finances. She took freelance work. She cut corners she hadn't considered before. She was forced to consider what living within your means actually looked like. I imagine some viewers will call this harsh. Maybe it was. But the alternative was a lifetime of enabling a show that hid a deeper rot. The truth is a kinder teacher than continued lies. When the house finally went on the market, Jenna cried in a way that wasn't for performance. She cried for the illusion she had held so tightly. The buyer came, the inspections happened, and we stood in that empty house carrying lamps, folding boxes, folding a life down into manageable pieces. I did not gloat. I did not revel. I asked her once quietly, "Do you feel lighter?" She laughed in a half-sob. "I thought I'd feel defeated," she said. "I feel honest. Terrified but honest." That to me was the real victory. Not that she lost the house but that she had to live with herself without a shield. That is the kind of justice that changes a person. Hopefully for the better. Dad and Mom changed too. They stopped using houses as trophies and started asking me for advice. Not to show off, but because they actually wanted to understand. Sunday dinners became less like competitions and more like conversations. Jenna found a smaller condo. Quieter, less flashy. She worked hard, slowly saved, and rebuilt without hiding. Our relationship, stripped of secrecy, grew into something real. That was the payoff I wanted. I kept doing what I loved. Fixing broken gutters at dawn, negotiating a lease at noon, meeting a tenant in the evening with a pie I'd baked because I know human beings appreciate small kindnesses. 15 properties are a lot to manage. They are also a life I built without shouting it from the rooftops. I still live simply. Simple coffee in the morning, thrifted jackets in the fall, quiet weekends. But I no longer shrink at dinner tables. I no longer let someone else's loudness elbow me out of the room. I built a quiet empire, and that empire taught me boundaries. The real revenge wasn't about exposing Jenna to shame. It was about refusing to be small anymore. Maybe that sounds modest to people who want fireworks. Maybe it sounds like nothing at all. But there is a fierce satisfaction in living openly, honestly, and with rules you set. In the weeks and months after the sale, things settled into a new pattern. Mom called me asking for refinancing tips for the cabin. Dad, embarrassed at his assumptions, began to listen. Jenna and I are still sisters. We fight, we laugh, we argue about paint colors and whether it's worth replacing a porch swing. But the tenor is different. We speak honestly now. She doesn't text me new backsplash photos trying to make me jealous. She celebrates the small wins with me without measuring them against the neighbor's renovations. She learned to rebuild without a secret benefactor. I learned something too. People will surprise you when you stop carrying their scripts for them. I found out that boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are lines that keep people honest. And truth, though sharp, is forgiving if you let it be. Here's the hard truth. Kindness without boundaries becomes entitlement. Love without limits sometimes gets used as fuel for someone else's performance. Setting a boundary is often misread as cruelty when what it actually is care with structure. I stopped financing a story Jenna was telling herself and my family, and in the process, I gave her a chance to rebuild honestly. I don't regret the cost of that honesty. I regret only that it took the sting of humiliation to make us all sit up and be real. If you've ever been underestimated by people who should know you best, you're not alone. You can be kind and strong. You can bail someone out. Once, twice. And then if the pattern keeps repeating, your next kindness can be the one that forces truth. Sometimes that looks like walking away from an auto payment. Sometimes it looks like saying no at a dinner table. But it always looks like protecting the life you've built. If this hit home, share where you're watching from and subscribe. And tell me in the comments the moment you stopped shrinking. I read them. I learned from them. I grow with them. I still get messages from people who say they wish they were as brave as I was. I tell them bravery isn't always roaring. Bravery is the small act that refuses to be complicit in a lie anymore. To close, one small thing. If this story lands with you, please like the video. It helps this channel tell more honest stories. And drop a comment about a time you set a boundary that changed your life. If you want more stories like this, subscribe. We build a quiet empire together, one honest day at a time. Final reflection. I paid Jenna's mortgage because I loved her. I stopped paying it because I loved myself. That difference saved both of us in ways we didn't see at first.